The hum of the engine was almost hypnotic, smooth, deep, powerful, the kind of sound you feel in your chest before you hear it in your ears. My hand rested lightly on the steering wheel, the buttery leather warm against my palm. Outside, Manhattan's skyline shimmered under the early morning sun, skyscrapers cutting through clouds like they had something to prove. I had something to prove, too. I eased the car into the private entrance of Monroe Motors, my luxury dealership, 3 floors of glass and steel, housing everything from vintage Ferraris to the latest electric supercars. My heels clicked against the marble as I stepped inside, nodding to the staff. The smell of fresh espresso drifted from the lounge. The day was already busy. A private auction this evening, 2 new deliveries to prep, but my phone buzzing in my bag stopped me mid-step.
Dad.
The name on the screen felt heavier than it should have. I hadn't heard from him in over a year. My thumb hovered, but curiosity won. Savannah. His voice came through, hesitant, almost nervous. Your mom and we need to talk. It's about a car. A car. For a second, I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. The last time my parents and I had spoken about a car, it was the day they sold mine. Without asking. Without caring what it meant to me.
Now?
I owned a fleet. And they had no idea. I took a slow breath, my reflection catching in the glass wall behind the showroom, hair perfectly in place, diamond bracelet sparkling against my wrist. Sure, Dad. I said, voice smooth. Let's talk about cars. 3 years ago, I didn't have glass-walled showrooms or a fleet of luxury cars. I had one, just one, a silver 2010 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a stereo that only worked when you hit it twice. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I'd bought it after working 2 jobs all summer, waitressing at a diner during the day and folding shirts at a discount store at night. I still remember the exact feeling the day I drove it home, the soft hum of the engine, the smell of worn fabric seats, the way the keys felt heavy in my hand like they carried a piece of my independence.
My parents didn't see it that way.
It's a waste of money, Savannah, Mom had said, arms crossed, standing in the kitchen with that look that told me her mind was already made up. You don't need a car, Dad added, flipping through the mail. We can just drive you when you need to go somewhere. I wanted to shout that I was 22, not 12, that I didn't need them to take me anywhere, but the lump in my throat made words useless. The day it happened is burned into my memory. I came home from class, books still in my backpack, and found an empty driveway. I thought maybe Mom had borrowed it, but when I walked inside, she and Dad were sitting at the table, looking strangely satisfied. We sold the car, Dad said flatly, like it was no big deal. My chest tightened. You what? It was for your own good, Mom chimed in. You were spending too much on gas and insurance. We'll help you save. The sting was sharper than I could explain. They hadn't just taken a car. They'd taken my first real taste of freedom. That night, I called my grandmother. She listened without interrupting, her warm, gravelly voice wrapping around me like a blanket. Sweetheart, she said, people can take your things, but they can't take your drive. You remember that. She mailed me her silver charm bracelet a week later, the one with a tiny steering wheel charm hanging in the middle. I wore it every day after that. And the very next month, I made a decision. I wouldn't depend on anyone again.
Not for rides.
Not for approval. Not for permission to chase what I wanted. That was the night I started planning a new life. When I left home, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no slammed doors. Just a quiet decision to pack my bags, load them into the back of a borrowed pickup truck, and drive toward a life no one thought I could have. I landed in Charlotte, North Carolina, far enough to start fresh, close enough to visit if I ever wanted to. I rented a tiny apartment above a bakery. The scent of fresh bread and cinnamon rolls would drift through my window each morning, reminding me that small beginnings could still be sweet. My first job was at a local auto service center. It wasn't glamorous, oil changes, tire rotations, and answering phones, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it let me learn the business from the ground up. I memorized makes, models, and market values. I watched how customers lit up when they talked about their dream cars. Then I met Linda Hartman. She was unlike anyone I'd ever met, mid-50s, effortlessly elegant, and the owner of a boutique luxury dealership on the edge of town. She came in one afternoon with her Porsche for servicing, and while she waited, we struck up a conversation. "You know your stuff," she'd said, eyebrow raised. "Ever thought about sales?" I hadn't. But a week later, I was standing in her showroom, staring at polished Aston Martins and Lamborghinis like they were works of art. Linda became my mentor, teaching me everything from how to negotiate with high-profile clients to which luxury models appreciated in value. It wasn't easy. In the luxury car industry, people expect the salesman to be a sharp-suited man with a deep voice. More than once, I had clients glance past me to find the real salesperson. I learned to let my knowledge do the talking, walking them through performance specs, customization options, and resale values until they realized I was the expert they needed. The first time I sold a car, a metallic blue Maserati to a real estate developer, I felt that same rush I'd felt driving my old Civic for the first time. Only this time, the commission check was big enough to pay 2 months' rent. Within 3 years, I'd saved enough to open my own dealership, Monroe Motors, named after my grandmother's maiden name. I started small, 3 pre-owned Porsches, a Jaguar, and a classic Corvette. But word spread fast. My reputation for honesty and sharp instincts attracted serious buyers. I reinvested every dollar back into the business. I learned auctions inside out, sourcing rare models and building relationships with collectors. Slowly, my inventory grew, so did my network. Before long, I was supplying vehicles for celebrity events, luxury weddings, even movie productions. Through it all, I kept my success quiet when it came to my parents. On social media, I posted modest snapshots, a latte, a book, a park bench, nothing that hinted at the fleet of cars I owned or the 7-figure contracts I negotiated. It wasn't about revenge. Not at first. It was about building something for myself, something no one could take away. By the time my 30th birthday rolled around, I had over 50 luxury vehicles in my possession, each one a symbol of the freedom I'd once been denied. And not a single one of them had my parents' fingerprints on it. 2 days after that unexpected phone call from my dad, I stood in the middle of Monroe Motors, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the sleek curves of a jet-black Lamborghini Aventador. My staff moved around me like clockwork, detailing cars, setting up displays, prepping for the evening's private auction. At exactly 11 a.m., the front glass doors opened, and in walked my parents. They looked smaller than I remembered. Dad's hair had thinned. Mom's eyes darted nervously around as if she'd stepped into another world. And in a way, she had. "Savannah," Mom breathed, her gaze sweeping over the rows of Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, and rare vintage models. This is yours."
I smiled politely.
All of it. Their expressions flickered. Disbelief, then confusion. I motioned for them to follow me toward the lounge, where Italian leather armchairs faced a glass wall, looking out over the showroom floor. My heels clicked softly against the marble, and I could feel their eyes on every detail, the commissioned art pieces on the walls, the hand-stitched rugs, the gold-lettered Monroe Motors logo gleaming behind my desk. Dad cleared his throat. We came because we need a car. Yours is the only place in the city that has the model we want." I let the words hang in the air for a beat. The irony was almost poetic. "Do you remember," I began, leaning lightly against my desk, "the day you sold my car?" Mom's lips pressed together. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We thought we were helping you," he muttered. "Helping?" My voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "You didn't just sell a piece of metal. You sold my independence. My freedom. You made a decision about my life without even asking me." They didn't speak. I could tell they weren't used to seeing me like this, composed, confident, in complete control of the room. I gestured toward the floor below us. "Now, I own 56 luxury cars. And this," I spread my arms slightly, "is my dealership, my business, my fleet." The silence was thick. Mom's eyes widened, tracing the Lamborghini's smooth lines below us. Dad exhaled, almost a whisper. "I had no idea." "No," I said softly, "you didn't. Because I learned to stop sharing my dreams with people who don't believe in them. Their shame was visible, the downcast eyes, the faint flush on Dad's cheeks. But underneath, there was something else too. Pride, maybe even awe. I straightened, my voice smooth and even. So, tell me, what's the car you're looking for? Dad hesitated, glancing at Mom before naming the model. A brand new Range Rover, fully loaded. I typed a few keys on my computer. We have one in stock, I said, pulling up the specs. But here's the thing, I don't just sell cars. I choose who I sell them to. Their eyes flicked up to mine, realizing this was no ordinary transaction. I leaned forward, folding my hands on the desk, the silver steering wheel charm on my bracelet glinting in the sunlight. I'll sell you the Range Rover, I said evenly. But there are conditions. Mom blinked. Conditions? Savannah, it's just a car. No, I interrupted gently. It's never just a car. They fell silent. I could see Dad's jaw tighten, his pride warring with curiosity. Condition 1, I began. You respect my independence. That means no more dismissing my decisions because they don't match yours. I built this business without your help, and I don't need your approval to keep running it. Mom shifted in her seat. Dad gave a slow nod. Condition 2, I continued. You start supporting my goals the same way you'd support my brother's or anyone else's. No more you don't need that or that's not practical. I've heard enough of that to last a lifetime. Mom's lips pressed together, but she stayed quiet. Condition 3, I said, letting the words settle. You start chasing your own dreams. Both of you. I don't care if it's gardening, traveling, writing a book, but stop living in a place where you pull others down because you're too afraid to climb yourself. Dad looked away, blinking slowly. Mom's fingers curled in her lap. I knew the word stung, but sometimes truth does. And the last condition, I added, my tone softening, is honesty. If you're in trouble, tell me. If you need help, ask me. Don't hide behind control or pride. That's how we ended up here in the first place. The silence stretched long enough for the faint sound of a detailer polishing a Ferrari below to drift up to us. Finally, Dad spoke. Savannah, we didn't realize how much we hurt you. His voice cracked. I thought I was protecting you. I see now I was just holding you back. Mom's eyes glistened. You've built something beautiful, she said quietly. I'm proud of you. It wasn't an apology. Not fully. But it was a start. I leaned back, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Good, I said. Because I'll have the paperwork ready this afternoon. And when you drive that Range Rover off the lot, I want you to remember that it's not just a car. It's a reminder of the bridge we're rebuilding, if you're willing to cross it. Dad gave a slow, deliberate nod. Mom reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of my desk. We'll try, she said. Trying, I replied, is a good place to start. A week later, I stood at the front of Monroe Motors, watching the Range Rover's taillights disappear down the street. Dad was behind the wheel, Mom in the passenger seat, both of them waving as they turned the corner. It was different this time. They'd stayed after the sale to talk, really talk. Not about the past, not about what they thought I should be doing, but about their own lives. Dad admitted he'd always wanted to restore an old Mustang like the one he drove in college. Mom confessed she'd been keeping a travel journal for years, but had never left the country. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was being managed, corrected, or doubted. I felt seen. Over the next month, I noticed small shifts. Dad sent me photos of Mustangs he found online, asking my opinion. Mom emailed me links to art museums in Europe she wanted to visit. The conversations weren't perfect, but they were real. One evening, I sat alone in my office, the dealership quiet after closing. The glass walls reflected the soft glow of showroom lights, each car gleaming like it had its own heartbeat. My fingers brushed the silver charm bracelet on my wrist, the tiny steering wheel cool against my skin. I thought about the girl who had cried in her bedroom the night her parents sold her Civic. The girl who felt powerless, voiceless, and small. And then I thought about the woman who now owned over 50 luxury cars, negotiated million-dollar deals, and set her own terms. The pain hadn't vanished, but it had shaped me. It had forced me to grow into someone stronger than I ever imagined. I stood, walking toward the floor below, letting my hand skim the glossy hood of a vintage cherry-red Ferrari. The scent of leather and polish filled the air, the smell of my empire. I knew my parents might never fully understand the fire they'd lit in me, but maybe they didn't need to. Maybe it was enough that they were finally meeting me where I stood, instead of pulling me back to where I'd been. I paused by the glass doors, looking out at the city lights, my reflection overlapping with the showroom behind me. My voice, steady and certain, echoed in my own mind, words I'd carry with me long after this day. They sold my first car, but they couldn't sell my drive.